You are locked on to Generation Nation here on LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jen Yates, the generator, and I'm super pumped because we have Jeff Jarboe from the Wolf Brothers, drummer extraordinaire, with me here in the studio at LRS. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jen. How you doing?
Thanks
for having me on. It's a real honor. Thank you so much.
Hey, well, thanks for coming. It's an honor for me because I'm a huge fan of yours. I've been following you around since I was a kid, I think.
Been around a long time. No doubt about that. So.
No kidding.
It's been fun.
Been
a fun ride.
Tell us what you're doing because I know y'all stay slamming, man.
This is I'm in the Wolf Brothers. This year we're celebrating our 50th year as a band.
Wow, congrats!
I
wish I had hand claps.
Paul Cunningham started the band in 1969, the same year as Woodstock. In fact, one of their first gigs, they were up in New York and saw the posters for this upcoming music festival and art show called Woodstock. They were there when they saw the posters for it.
At Woodstock.
Yeah, at Woodstocks. And then they didn't play, but they were playing up around there. But anyway, so I joined. I'm in the band 39 years. Yeah. December 1st will make 40 years. I'm like, how did that happen? Man.
I don't know, but y'all are amazing, and I've seen you multiple times throughout my life.
Been very lucky, very blessed to be able to do it. The main thing we do now, I mean, we do a lot of things, but for the past now going into 28 years, we do educational programs in schools all across the state. We go into elementary, middle, and high schools, and we teach American history through music. We have 8 different programs. Comes with a study guide. We're a member of the Kentucky Arts Council, and we go in and we do about a 50-minute show, and it comes, like I said, it's with an actual study guide, and it's teaching American history through music. That's 90% of our work. We do other things, like last night we played up in Cincinnati on a riverboat, but that's during the summer we do those kind of things. But like I said, 90% is the educational shows. Yeah. Do
you do that just in Louisville, or you go around the entire state?
All over the state.
Yeah, that's
all over the state.
Rad.
Sometimes a little bit down in Tennessee, sometimes up in Indiana and Illinois, but mostly in the state of Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah. All age groups too, huh?
All age groups. What's happening now, and this has happened for the past 2 years, we go into an elementary school, and I'll go in and make the contact, and then we see these teachers and principals, and one of them will come up to us and go, I saw you when I was in the 3rd grade. I'm like, oh my God, how'd that happen? Where'd the time go?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm very, very lucky, very blessed to be able to do this.
I was going to say, very blessed, and there's nothing more that kids need more today than music in schools because they're cutting it out.
Well, look what you do. You know, the way you teach kids and sometimes special needs kids and what you do, and that's amazing because you're giving something back. You're giving positivity because there's so much negativity.
Right.
You're giving positivity back, and it's fantastic, and that's we're lucky to be able to do it.
That's kind of the way I look at it too. I'm glad you said that because I look at teaching kids like it's a way for me to give back.
No question
because I'm just handing them the tools, and then and a great example, we have a band that's taking over Louisville right now, White Reaper. I used to teach the guy on drums.
That's incredible.
And Skinny J just saw him at Headliners not too long ago, a couple of nights ago, right? Yeah. And he said it was slam packed and they were awesome. And now they're on tour and doing all this stuff, and it was just like, wow, this kid was like 7 or 8 when I had him.
That's fantastic. I mean, like you said, you give them the tools and they run with it. And the kids today, my goodness, they're so good. It's comparatively, they're unbelievable.
Do you ever YouTube some of these kids? I'm like, these 3-year-olds that can play Zeppelin better than I ever could.
My wife will say, "Why you practice so much, Jeff?" And I'll open up, I'll show her my tablet. I'm like, "Look at this kid. He's 11."
I know. That's why I practice.
Not that I'm competing with that, but I mean, it keeps you inspired. It's humbling, but it's also inspiring. To me, it is because I'm thinking, man, the future of music, when you see this, it's in good hands when you see these kids.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit, just because our listeners, I want them to know, how did you all form the Wolf Brothers? Obviously, you're a Louisville-based band, right? But you've played everywhere.
We've been really played all over the country, but Paul Cunningham started the band in 1969. Mm-hmm. And the current line, there's been a lot of people in and out of that band since up until 1980 when I joined, and I've been in 39 years. The current lineup is myself, of course, Paul Cunningham, and Rod Wortley, who's the keyboard player, fantastic player, and he's been in 29, almost 30 years. So that lineup has been 30 years. That's the ones that we're the ones that do the educational shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he started a band in '69, and here's a little trivia for you. A lot of people think, "Oh, I know those Wolf guys." Well, there's never been anybody named Wolf. Never.
I was going to ask you, are there brothers?
Yeah, brothers with different mothers.
Brothers with different mothers. I love that.
They got the name from. They actually got the name from a Wolf Brothers cigar box and changed the name from WOLF to WLFE. And they did it because they didn't want it to date the band. They didn't want it to, to sound like, hey, the Psychedelic Explosion or the Good Old Boy. I mean, Wolf Brothers could mean any kind of music, funk, rock, pop, rock, jazz,
anything,
blues, anything. And so
you guys kind of do that too, right?
We do a lot of stuff. We cover a lot of gamuts,
Yeah.
But that's how they started the band, and it's survived. Like I said, this summer is 50 years.
Well, kudos to you all. I mean, I can't even keep a relationship for over a week, much less a band together for 40 years.
Well, what the guy in Sting, Andy Summers, I think.
Yeah. In the Police.
Yeah, the guy. Yeah, Sting. Yeah. And he said, one of the guys in the Police said, being in a band is like marriage without sex.
Well, yeah, it is.
I mean, we're with each other more than we are without our own wives.
Yeah, so exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And not only that, but I just came out of an all-female band. It's like you're in a relationship with 4 other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it really is.
We've been through a lot together. I mean, we've been through a lot together. I love Paul Cunningham like he's like a brother, and his wife too. She's like a sister, Marianne Cunningham. We call her Canary. But what's cool about her? She writes. Not only does she take care of the things in the business end of this. I mean, Paul runs the band, but she does the office stuff. But she also writes the script to each one of our shows. She does the historical research and writes the script. So when you see our show and we sound like we're really smart, it's because of the stuff she wrote for us to say.
Well, there's always a lot of work going on behind the scenes that people don't know about.
And Rod Wortley, there again, he's one of the finest keyboard players, one of the finest musicians I've ever worked with in my life, and just a gifted player. And like I said, love him like a brother. So
cool.
very lucky to have 3 people that care about each other and can actually make music and make a living together.
Yeah,
so very
just
lucky.
A 3-piece too, right?
Just a 3-piece.
Yeah.
We went 3-piece in 1984. We'd had guitar players before, and some really good ones, but there was always a problem or a disagreement about some things.
Right. And I was just about to ask you, in those 40 years, I mean, that you've been there, is there ever? And I don't like to talk about a lot of the negative stuff, but I mean, there's so many things that go on behind the with the band behind the scenes that could potentially split you up.
Sure.
Surely you've had those over the years, right?
Yeah, we've had our day. There's been our days, where we like when you're like brothers, like a family, you disagree and you argue about stuff.
Right.
But we've been able to work through all that because we have respect for each other as people and musicians, and we truly love each other. So we can say, hey, wait a minute, whoa, time out, whoa, let's rethink this and move on.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've been together this long. So
yeah, that's cool. Well, kudos to you for keeping it together.
Very lucky.
Tell me a little bit about the CDs you brought in, because we're gonna spin some Wolf Brothers.
Okay.
I've got the Let's Dance CD here, which looks cool because it's gonna teach me some sort of.
Well, what that is, we have CDs of all of our shows, and but this one is our biggest seller. And what it is, it's 18 group dance songs. They're songs everybody done with our own arrangements, and mainly for kids. And a lot of gym instructors use them. Hell, the people at Curves were using them.
Yeah, I was just looking. You can't see the lineup, our listeners, but I mean, there's everything from the limbo to the cha-cha slide, the electric slides on here. You need to put the wobble on there now.
Yeah, the wobble. Yeah,
the skanky leg.
We had done that before the wobble got big. Yeah. But
no, it's got the bunny hop, the hokey pokey.
Yeah,
there's some cool ones on here, man.
All group dance songs, and
I love it.
The track you're gonna hear. This is called. It's Iko Iko, which is a hand jive, and Paul Cunningham singing lead, and you can play it up to the piano solo. It's really good. Yours truly on the drums.
Oh yeah, man, Jeff, you're one of my favorite drummers.
Oh well, no, I just do the best I can.
I hear ya. Well, Jeff, hang around because we're gonna be talking with him all day.
Thanks.
From 2 to 4, and we got Alice DeBurr calling in from Fanny soon. This is the Wolf Brothers. Iko Iko.
My grandma saw your grandpa gonna fix your chicken while you talk about hey now, hey now, hey now, hey now. Iko Iko onde, chacamo fino anane, chacamo finane. I said now hey. fino a nanne, Giacomo Finane, Giacomo Finane, Giacomo Finane, ecco!
Jeff, that's super cool, man.
That's just one of the group songs that we do, and we go into the hand jive after that. But
yeah, I love the hand job too, man. And
Rodney's piano solo on that is just smoking, so it's a lot of fun.
Heck
we had a
yeah,
lot of
so
fun.
are the drums, by the way.
Let me tell you, there's a little trivia on that. At the end, we do the electric slide for kids, and at the end, I put in a friend of mine's name. Bron Jenkins, who was a great jazz drummer. He died in 2002, a week before we recorded that.
Wow.
So that was good therapy for me to record that.
I bet.
But anyway, I put his name I slipped his name in on the end of the electric slide. But it's you have to listen for it. But that record, that album is that's definitely our biggest selling, because everybody wants to do these group dance songs, and like I said, gym instructors want them, and like the people, like I said, the people with curves. And other people,
I want a copy.
I'll get you one. you can have that one. If you
I'll
want.
be dancing in my car because I love to dance. If you know anything about me, I love to play drums, but I also love to dance.
Well, I wish I could say the same. I'm not a good dancer at all.
You know what's funny is I've noticed most drummers,
they don't
dance.
They really don't.
And it's weird because they have rhythm.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I've had people say, "You all keep the beat." I'm like, I know, but we just don't dance. You know.
Right.
Yeah,
I hear you.
That's
it's
great.
kind of
You're a good
interesting.
dancer.
Yeah. I loved it. I just like to cut up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have a good time. Jeff, tell me a little bit about your influences as a drummer.
Okay, well, obviously the Beatles for me.
Ringo, man.
Great. One of my best friends, Dave Williams, who I think you had in here last week.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Great drummer, great friend. We're both Beatle fans. I mean,
huge.
My brother I shared a room with him. He was older than me, and so he got into the Beatles and all the British invasion.
Yeah.
And that was definitely an influence. Then one day, I saw Buddy Rich on TV. And I'd never seen him. I was probably 11 or 12. And I did not know the drums could even be played like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw guys in bands keeping beats and grooves and stuff. But when I saw him, I'm like, oh my God! I was like speechless. I couldn't believe it. That was it. I thought that's what I want to do. Obviously, can't play like him. Nobody can. But I mean,
right.
But then I guess
his video's still rocking out. Those YouTube videos.
Unbelievable. The stuff he did, even back in the '40s, it still holds up today. It's unbelievable.
Sure
I got
does.
to see him 6 times. I got to shake his hand, got his autograph.
No kidding. Yeah.
Definitely the greatest.
You know what? Dave Williams actually asked me to ask you about that because he said he's seen Buddy Rich, man.
I've seen him 6 times. I got to shake his hand, got his autograph, and truly, when I first saw him as a young guy, it was all about the speed and the chops and the power.
Yeah.
As I got older and got hopefully better, but it was about the musicality. The way he played with a band was unbelievable. And for me, some people don't have to agree, but I think he's the greatest drummer that ever lived.
Yeah.
And it definitely the end of an era. And all the super guys that are out there today, I mean, it's stuff that he laid the groundwork for.
Yeah, he sure
really
did. I saw a video with him the other day, and he was really dogging on Match Grip.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a traditional grip guy.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. Which I love, but he actually goes through this whole explanation of why he does not like Match Grip. Have you seen that video?
Yes, I've seen that video. But what's funny is there is a video of him in like 1941 at a big dinner club somewhere in New York, and he's doing a floor tom solo with playing Match Grip.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yeah. He talked about how it's easier to move around a 4-piece.
Yeah.
When you got that left hand holding the traditional grip.
Well, do you play traditional grip?
I started traditional. So I'm very comfortable traditional, but somewhere, along the rock and roll days, I ended up kind of switching over. I kind of go back and forth. Sometimes I'll do both.
Same here.
It's just whatever I'm feeling in the moment.
The same here. I started out traditional. It's almost, if you start out traditional, you can switch to match. If you start out match, it's almost almost impossible to switch to
I
traditional.
agree. I definitely agree. And
Excuse
from
me.
teaching kids, I've noticed that too. A lot of them will study up and they'll come back and they'll ask, "Hey, what's this?" And they always want to do it backwards. They
Yeah,
always want to
yeah.
hold the right
Right.
hand, And I'm like, no, the right hand's still kind of like match, But I was like, we'll talk about all those different grips later. But a lot of them, I've noticed even marching bands and stuff, they're kind of switched over to match grip. But
Yeah.
when I was in marching band, and I did pit, so I didn't do the line except for like
Right.
parades and stuff. But the line was always required to be traditional.
Traditional, yeah.
We were a jazz group though, so.
Whenever I play jazz, I always naturally just go to traditional grip. I think it's a psychological. And when I play slow ballads or blues, I'm playing traditional grip. I just
Yeah.
feel like I can lay back a little more with traditional. But if I
Interesting.
need speed or power,
Yeah.
it's definitely matched.
Yeah,
So,
I hear you. That's a great analogy for that too.
Yeah.
Because I always teach the students, you have different grips for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And you might even want to go to the French grip at some
Sure.
point. Use the fingers if you're trying to get like some speed out of the, or certain cymbal patterns or whatnot.
You are totally right. Whenever I hear somebody say, "Oh, it's all wrist," I'm like, no, it's not. It's a combination of wrist, fingers, forearms, everything moving together. You know,
Right.
and it's all that works together.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's why they have the different grips, and let the music dictate what works for you for
Right.
the time and the music that you're playing. So
Yeah, it's always like the music is bigger. You know what I mean?
no question about
Bigger
it.
than the musician. Always.
Well, Jen, let me tell you two other things.
Sure.
The other influence I had for me, I mean, no question, John Bonham. I got to say this. John Bonham for me, is the most, all the stuff I've ever read or heard any other drummer talk about, he is the most referenced guy I've ever seen. I don't care if you're talking to a jazz
He
player,
is.
rock, funk, country, whatever. John Bonham somehow comes up in the conversation.
I know.
What he's done. But
Yeah.
and I loved him, but the bigger influence for me was the guy in Deep Purple named Ian Pace.
Oh, I love him.
He was a huge
Oh
influence
man,
on me. Yeah.
and he is like rudiment chop
yeah.
crazy.
yeah, his hands are phenomenal. And
I've listened to a lot of his older stuff. We'll play some Deep Purple here in a
Yeah,
minute
it's
in honor of
fantastic.
Ian. Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, I agree with you though. He is an amazing player.
Great
and
player.
every time I listen to him, I'm like, oh, there's a rudiment, there's a rudiment,
Yeah.
there's a rudiment. He's
Yeah.
just full of them.
he's fantastic, and he's a very nice guy. That's
We'll have to
definitely
look
an
up some
influence.
Deep
There's been
Purple
a
now.
bunch of other guys too, but those, Buddy Rich was the one that really propelled me, and then Ian Pace, I tried to emulate him for a while, and there's other guys too. I mean, Bonham,
Oh, yeah.
Other people, Carl Palmer, for
Oh, Palmer, yeah,
but
yeah.
not so much now anymore. But I mean, for the speed and stuff like that. But then Steve Gadd, my gosh, Steve Gadd.
Steve Gadd's one of my top
No
favorites.
question
too.
about it.
I mean, the Doctor, man.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
unbelievable.
If you don't know 50 ways, you better learn it.
You gotta
know?
learn it. I
yeah.
got to play that the other night down at Jeff Ruby's. I was
Oh,
playing
no
with
kidding.
Robbie Bartlett.
Yeah.
And before she came up, I said, the bass player Mark Richardson said, "Hey man, do you know 50 ways?" I said, "Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it." So it was great.
If you're a drummer and you don't know 50 ways, something
gotta-
is wrong.
you gotta do it.
It's
You
like
gotta
one of
learn it.
those that's. I think every drummer goes through their Bonham period. That we all go through periods of things that we have to learn, and
Yeah.
50 Ways is right up there on that
Gotta
list.
have it.
What's your favorite Deep Purple track? We'll try to get that
Oh
on.
my
later.
gosh, there's so many.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, the thing about me and the Wolf Brothers is I'm also a singing drummer, and I've just evolved into that over the years.
Right.
I'm as much a singer now in the Wolf Brothers
Yeah.
as I am a drummer.
Which kudos to you. That's very hard to do.
It's just the Wolf Brothers have always been about vocals. The joke is even our instrumentals have vocals, and it's constant
That's funny.
singing, so
Yeah.
harmony and everything. So I mean, but I do sing. Smoke on the Water, but that's really not my favorite track. I
Yeah.
think the song Burn from the title track of that 1973 album, Burn,
Cool.
that's definitely one of my favorite. That really shows off Ian Pace's
Well,
ability.
we'll do some research and
Yeah.
get that on here in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, stick around, y'all. You're listening to LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jen Yates, and I'm featuring drummer Jeff Jarbo from the Wolf Brothers today. And we're going to rock out with some Nazareth, Hair of the Dog, some cowbell. You're locked on to LRS 102.
You know what happens when you ask Alexa to play LRS102.com? This.
Now playing LRS102.com, Louisville's rock stream.
LRS102.com. Turn it on, leave it on. We are Louisville's Rock Stream.
I am Jen Yates. I am joined by Jeff Jarboe of the Wolf Brothers. Man, gosh, that's a great track, too.
Great track. I love the, like I said, the keyboard solo. John Lord, I think he's passed us. Well, he's already passed. But, man, our keyboard player, Rod Wortley, references that particular solo as an inspiration to want to really play the keyboards, and he loved the organ solo. It's just a great solo. Their stuff still holds up. It really does.
Oh, yeah. And you can hear the chops, I mean, from Ian. I mean, there's
doubt.
There's like triplets all over that thing and all kinds of just cool things. We were just talking off the record a little bit about reading. You know, how important do you think, Jeff, is it for drummers to read these days?
It's very important. I think it's very, I mean, like I just mentioned, I'm an okay reader. I'm certainly not a great reader. I was probably a better reader back in the early 90s. Yeah. And like a foreign language, if you don't use it, you lose it. But yeah, I've only done a few gigs where I had to read. Yeah. But there are people like you who do it really well. And
I try.
If I get calls, I'd say call Jen Yates or call somebody else. Those are the people that do it all well. But no, it's really good because you get these exercise books with really cool ideas, and if you can't read that, but if you can read it, then you can figure out these really cool things that are going on. Yeah. You should definitely know some basic fundamental reading things. You may not have to understand a whole score, but just some definitely. It's very important. I think it's very important.
I try to get all of my students to read.
Yeah, it's good,
especially while they're young because they're just soaking it up,
soaking it in.
But I'm like, look. If I teach you how to read, then you can read. Then you won't need me a whole lot anymore in the future. You can literally go online and pull up, stuff, figure things out. I went through this time period when I was teaching at Mom's Music there that I just started collecting books. Every book I could find from Buddy Rich to whatever. Carmen Appice's got that realistic rock to the stick control. Literally all the old books till current, and anytime I find a book, I just found one down in Florida. It was Phil Collins. It was all of his greatest hits, and it was a drum book, a drum notation of nothing but Phil Collins songs.
More than likely, I'm thinking probably a guy transcribed all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's a guy,
and you want to know who's transcribing it because they can be wrong.
They can be wrong. There's a guy who works for Drum Magazine, not Modern Drum, but Drum, and his name's Brad Schlater, and he transcribes all this really, really complicated stuff from these super drummers, and I'm like, golly, man, it's amazing, and he gets it right. He gets it dead on. I'm like, man, oh man, that's a gift, man. It's unbelievable. So.
We were talking about Bonham earlier. I've got a lot of the books that have been transcribed from him, and those guys still can't even figure out what he was doing. You know what I mean?
When I had to cover some Led Zeppelin. When you really listen to it, you go, oh my gosh, man, this guy was definitely ahead of his time. There again, it still holds up. Yeah. And he was 32 when he died. Some people, when they hit their prime, they're almost 40. And I mean, he did all that stuff before, at 32. I mean, that's when he passed. I mean, he had some amazing ideas, musical ideas, interesting things, and that's one of the main reasons they didn't go on. They couldn't replace him. There's no way they could replace him.
I'm a big fan of when you're in a band, like that, and you've got main core members. Right. I don't like to replace people. I just really don't. Yeah. Once they're gone, I just want to be done with it because some people are just hard to replace.
It's hard to replace, and then you have that magic, that chemistry, and it's really hard to replace that. It is. It can be
well,
they
very did do about the best they could. They got his son into play.
Yeah, and he's great. And I got to see Led Zeppelin's, Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin a couple of years ago. And
same. I think I was at that show.
We were at the show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was fantastic. And he is a fabulous player.
He is.
And that's a guy that instead of like budding the fact that you're his son, you're his son. He embraced it and said, you're right. I am the son of the greatest rock drummer, and what better way to do this than to pay tribute to him by going out and doing Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience. And I think it's great.
I think it's an awesome idea, and they project his dad behind him. And one of my favorite parts of that show is where right before he took his break. And he was like, you got to remember, my dad was in his 20s doing this. And he's like, I'm almost 50. I got to take a break. Yeah. He was like, I can't keep the energy level of Zeppelin.
No. What I also thought was funny was he's British and he's like he's telling the crowd, he goes, well, I got my dad's drums, the Amber Vista light, and I got them and I fixed them all up, and so I go into rehearsal with the guys of Zeppelin, and I'm like, hey mates, look, and they were like, Okay, what big deal? What?
Yeah.
They didn't care.
They didn't care,
it's
right?
Like, to them, it's just a drum set. And it's this
Right.
iconic thing that he had.
One other thing I definitely remember about that show, another favorite thing was he was talking about when his dad, he didn't understand for a long time that his dad was this big, huge rock star. Like,
Yeah, right.
you know, he was just his dad
just
to
his
him.
dad, yeah.
So he said he would come in and they would be talking about drums and he would be like, Dad, you know you're not as good as that Stuart Copeland dude. You know what I mean? From the Police. He was a big Police fan. He was like, he had no idea, you know, who his dad was for a long time and then he talks about, you know, then after he passed, he
Right.
really started paying attention to, holy crap, my dad was like one of the best drummers and, you know, ever to have lived.
No question, definitely the best hard rock drummer I think ever, and a very musical drummer. I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
But,
And drunk on top of it.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it.
I got to see him live. I saw him live in '77.
Wow.
They really, actually, they did not. The mix did not sound that good, except for Kashmir. When they did Kashmir, for some reason, it sounded fantastic. But the rest of the mix just wasn't that
Where,
well. But
where was that
it
show?
was at Freedom Hall.
Oh, wow. Okay.
77, and the tickets were $8.50.
Isn't that crazy?
And LRS, I remember they said, no ticket prices are $8.50, folks, but remember, it is Led Zeppelin. I can still remember that.
Wow. I was going to ask you, you know, how far you go back with LRS, because I love to have all the people in to talk about, like, you know, when did you start listening to LRS?
Probably in 1971 or 2, yeah.
And here we are again, still kicking, yeah.
It's almost 50 years.
Yeah, back then they were like really breaking. They were breaking all those rock bands.
No question.
You know,
I mean, you had the AM stations, and they were playing all the pop, and then you know, LRS was doing the album cuts and feature albums, and really cool. I mean, definitely cutting edge for the time, no doubt about it. It's still around. It's great.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
When they called me and said, "Do you want to do the show?" I was like, "It's LRS. I've got to say yes."
You're
know
the
what
perfect
I mean?
person, and you're great. And let me tell you, Jen, you're a fabulous player.
Thank you.
I saw you on TV a few years. I think it was Great Day Live, and you were doing a drum solo, and you did this little something on a floor tom. And I was watching. I went, "Oh, cool! Look at a little sticking pattern. That's neat, man. That's neat." So yeah.
Wonder what it was. I'm gonna have to go back and watch now.
It was cool, but I noticed that stuff. You know,
It was probably like the paradiddle stuff. You know, I steal a lot from Gad.
Yeah.
Because I love Gad's, like, you know, the way he does like 30-second note.
Yeah.
Paradiddles and all kinds of interesting things. I love
cool
Purdy too. Purdy's one of my all-time favorites.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But no, you're really a great player.
Thanks,
and
man.
You play with confidence, and you play with passion. And I would say that if I was talking to that guy out there on the street, not just because we're here.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. That means a lot coming from you, because I remember, I think the first time I got hip to the Wolf Brothers, I was trying to remember this because my memory is very shady these days. I think I was really young. I think maybe 14, 15, and I was from Lake Cumberland, of course, so I wasn't from Louisville, so I wasn't hip to everything going on in Louisville. But I was playing in a country band called White Horse, and we had come up to play some kind of JC convention that hires for all the fairs around the state.
the county fair thing.
Back and
in the
y'all
early
were playing,
right.
And I think that was the first memory I had of who the Wolf Brothers were.
That's we used to do. You'd get like 20 minutes or a half hour to play.
Yeah,
I remember meeting a young girl there who was the daughter of a friend of ours up in Maysville, and she was in the Miss County Fair pageant. And I jokingly said to her then, I said, "Hey, you never know. You might be Miss America one day." And she laughed and said, "Yeah, right." Well, guess what? It was Heather French Henry.
That's wild,
That's a true
man.
story. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, it seems like there were some other bigger names on that. Like it wasn't Martina McBride, but it was somebody along those lines that was there.
Loretta Lynn's daughter, Sissy Lynn, she was on that. And there were some other names. Yeah,
I was
90s.
really young though.
Yeah.
I was not even old enough to drive, I don't think. It was either 15 or 16.
Yeah.
You know, right around that age. But anyway. Super cool. I'm so excited to have you in. You're such an interesting guy, man.
Well, I just been around long. Let me tell you, I do want to make mention of I'm probably going to leave out a few names, but man, there's a lot. As you know, there are a lot of fantastic local players.
Oh man, I want every single one of them in on the show too.
For the size city we are, we have some amazing musicians and fantastic drummers, and I just want to make mention of a few. Obviously, Marvin Maxwell, who I consider to be. he's like the Hal Blaine of Louisville. I mean,
He
really
is.
is.
He really- that's a great description.
He was on all those tracks back in the '60s, and Max Maxwell with Crashers, one of my great friends, fabulous drummer.
I love Max.
Max, you know, that's his dad, and he's like, you know, I learn something every time I watch him play. He's amazing. Marvin's fantastic. John Roy, who's like the godfather.
The godfather of the drummers around
Bruce
town.
Morrow, and of course one of my best friends, Dave Williams, great rock drummer, but also a great country drummer. He plays.
I know. I love me some Dave Williams.
Yeah, he plays with Tiffany Lynn Puck. He's fantastic. And then Jeff McAllister, Paul Culligan, jazz
We got to
players.
get Paul Culligan up in here.
Paul's fabulous.
Jeff's scheduled. He's coming in.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
He was in the Wolf Brothers. I replaced him back.
Really?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And of course,
That's
Jeff.
well.
He was also with Leonard Skinner, and he was with Gretchen Wilson and Hank Jr. for about 6 years. He's been all over the world. He's a really great player.
Yeah.
And
I
then-
love watching him play too.
Great player. Great. He's another real great musical player.
Yeah.
And then you got guys like Ray Dunaway Jr., who I studied with. He was a great player. You know, Mike McDowell, Brad Kennedy, Bill Miles, Tommy Seward, all these guys, these local cats, you know, they're just wonderful, wonderful players. Dave Beck, you know, Dave Beck's a great. He started at Drum Shop. John Roy actually had the first Drum Shop, and then Dave took it over a big one. He took it to another step over in Indiana at Far Out Music. Great drummer, and then, you know, Brad Kennedy, great friend of mine.
Yeah.
All these guys, great drummers. Jason Tiemann,
Yeah.
you know, Daryl Cotton. He's
Algers,
jazz
do you know
drummer.
Algers?
Mike
Mike Algers? Yeah.
all great. But there's so many. I'm leaving some out, and I hope I don't. But I love you all.
Jerry
And-
Hershaw, man,
Yeah,
I could
right.
go on.
Yeah.
You know, I just thinking of all the cats that I've seen around town that are awesome.
Stan Kirby, I mean, Michael Bailey, these guys, and they're singing drummers, but they're all great players, and I've learned something from every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You watch something, you go, oh my gosh, I never would have thought. Dave Williams used to play in a hard rock group called the Big Rock Show.
Yeah.
And I had subbed for him for 5 years on a Tuesday night at a club.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd watch him play because I was learning the material, and he would do some things, and I'd go, wow, I never would have thought to do that. Man, how cool was that? Oh my gosh, what a great idea. And same with you. You
Yeah.
have great musical ideas.
Thanks.
It's not just about chops and it's about the musicality of the
Well,
of
it's
the
funny
instrument.
the way you know, and it's different with every band. It's different with depending on if you're doing covers
Sure.
or originals
Yeah.
or whatever. But I always did love the original aspect, just because you can be creative. I like the creative aspect of music, you know, and that's where I feel like I shine. So
You do too. And
even if I'm doing a cover song, I'll kind of learn the structure, make the notes, get
Right.
the tempos, all that good stuff that you need to do, and then I just kind of throw them away and go, okay, now I'm just gonna play it.
Well,
you know?
that's very much what the Wolf Brothers do. We don't very rarely do we, even though we're basically a cover band, we
Yeah.
don't cover things note for note, be perfect, and that's fine if you want to do that. But we do our own original approach to it, and that's what's fun. Because you take the idea, you got your basic structure and stuff, and then okay, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to change this, we're going to make this, and then all of a sudden it becomes what we are.
Right.
You know, it is the song, but that's the creative part of it.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Well, tell us a little bit about this track we're gonna spin here.
Okay, this track here, I'm really lucky to do this. John Dennison, who is a very good friend of mine over in Floyd Knobs, Indiana, has a studio, and he and I did this track. We have a connection with a guy named Hank Linderman, who is a great guitarist from Louisville, lives in L.A. now. In fact, he just ran for Congress this past term.
Cool.
Didn't win, but
No.
he's a fabulous guitarist and a producer, and he produced the last Eagles album. He engineered the last Eagles album. He's worked with Chicago, and he's friends with the guys in America. So in 2010. We got to do 2 tracks on this album from a guy named Jeff Larson. Jeff Larson's a performer and a writer out in L.A. And this album, all the songs were written by the 2 guys in America, Jerry Beckley and Dewey Bunnell.
Man.
And I got to work with we did them over in Floyd Knobs, and you know it was really neat working with these guys. John Dennison engineered this and
Yeah.
co-produced it, and it's basically soft rock, and it's just really straight groove playing. But it was just neat to be able to work with these guys.
Throw a coin in the wishing
It's a cool song,
well
Wishing
for
Well.
the corners of tomorrow. In this world of kiss and tell, we are all so lonely now. There's a river overflowing, carry me away.
So, man, what a cool experience to get to work with the dudes from America.
It was really cool, and John Dennison and I had a fun time doing it, and we were very particular about how we did it because, you're working with these two iconic, like, classic rock guys, and you're like, man, we got to do this right, got to be right. So
yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
So I also want to tell our listeners we've got Alice DeBurr of Fanny calling in here in a little bit, and you said you were a big fan of hers.
Yes, I am. I remember seeing them when I was in high school. I saw them on TV. I don't know if it was Don Kirshner's rock concert at the time, but I remember seeing them, and man, they were great. I mean, these gals rocked.
They do.
They really did.
They're kind of considered, and the reason I wanted to have her on the show, we're in a book together, and we've been friends online for a long time, and I thought, man, what a cool interview to land with her.
Way cool.
And if you go back and watch their YouTube videos from like the 60s and 70s, I mean, they were killing it.
They were.
They're kind of considered one of the first all-female rock bands.
Yeah, because I remember when the Go-Go's hit in the early 80s, I thought, yeah, they're great. And but I thought, well, man, what about Fanny? What I mean? Don't forget about them. What I mean? They kind of laid the groundwork for the Go-Go's.
They did.
They had the machete cutting
exactly.
through the jungle, so
exactly.
they could follow their trails.
Yeah, and then now look how many all-female bands there are. Yeah. There's a ton.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to be talking to her. We're probably in the 3 o'clock hour, so you want to definitely stay tuned for that. I do want to remind you all, you can join LRS102.com July 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. That's at Erler's Ice Cream. It's an ice cream social at 201 East Main Street. That's in downtown Louisville for your chance to win free Louder Than Life weekend passes. All hang out, and you can just come hang with Nubbins and the Walrus for a shot at free Louder Than Life tickets. That event sounds so cool. Have you seen the lineup for that?
Yeah, a friend of mine is going, and he said it's really good this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking here. Louder Than Life. I mean, day one.
Yeah.
Slipknot's headlining. Stained. Have you seen the Slipknot guys? I mean, it's metal, but
yeah, I love it.
They're crazy.
Their drummer Joey Jordison is no longer with them.
Right.
You know who took it over? The guy played for Conan. Max Weinberg.
Oh, really?
His son, Jay. Is it Jay or?
I forget what his name is, but you know what? I saw him. Yeah. I saw him with Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
So evidently at Bonnaroo, they go on for like 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Well, Max has a contract clause that he cannot play, after like 2 hours or something like that. So they brought on his son to finish off the Bruce set. I mean, I was like, I forget what it was, but I think it was because he was on the TV show at that time, and it was some kind of clause with the TV.
Yeah, I think it's Jay Weinberg, but yeah, he's a great player. But man, Joey Jordison, that's another thing. Like my wife, she's a classic rock gal. I mean, by the way, I just want to say, my wife Anita, any drummer, any mother. I lost my mother in January of this year, and she was a saint. She was unbelievable, but she let me pursue something that I love, which is the drums and music, and she's the reason I'm what I am.
Yeah.
But my wife Anita, who I love dearly, she is totally behind me and totally into my music and my drums, and she's like, whatever you want to do, I mean, she's like I said, any wife or mother of a drummer already has a place in heaven, I think.
Oh, yeah. Let's give a shout out to my mom right now who's probably listening. She's a big fan of yours. She told me she was really excited about having the Wolf Brothers drummer on.
Jen Yates is awesome, and anyone that's ever heard her knows that. For those guys and gals that have not heard her, you need to check her out because she is a fantastic drummer and even a better person, too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You can thank my mama for that.
There you go.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about my mom that is so cool is that she always loved when I would practice. She would always encourage me to go practice.
That's
and
great.
She loved the drums. My dad was a drummer, obviously.
Yes.
So she's always been a huge fan, and she has traveled all over the world to come see me play. I mean, when I was on tour with Kelly Ritchie and Freakbass she flew down to the Keys, and we had this awesome moment in Key Largo, and just anywhere I play around and about. If I'm in Nashville, she's in Nashville. She can be there. She will be
like
there.
I told you before we've started. I mean, you've really rubbed elbows with some major hitters, and man, being in this new movie and having a cover of the book. I mean, man, Jen, that's impressive.
You know what? I didn't set out to do any of that. Literally, they just contacted me and said, "Hey, can you answer some questions?" And I thought, sure, why not? Had no idea. The book cover was really cool.
That was.
I mean, and the way that I found out, did I ever tell you that story?
No.
somebody saw my work with kids online and thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Said, I'm writing a book, sent me an email. I'm writing a book on women drummers. You know, I would love for you to answer some questions. So I said, sure. You know, they sent over about 20 questions and then said, can you send us a picture, you know, of you playing? I said, sure. So I sent the picture in, and I didn't know anything else about it. She said, oh, you know, it's going to be in a book and it'll be out in like April. So I said, okay, cool. Well, I follow Cindy Blackman Santana, who is a big influence of mine, and Sheila E. online.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I saw them post something about some book they were about to be in that was coming out in April. And I thought, that's weird. Wonder if it's the same book. Surely not, right? You know?
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there at my kitchen table one day looking at the internet, and I see Sheila E. post a picture of the cover, which they chose me for the cover of.
That's fantastic.
And I was like, holy crap. I literally think I got up and ran around the house a bunch of times. I was so, like, pumped, calling everybody, like, what?
That's amazing. And it's something to be proud of. I mean, that is way, way cool. I mean,
and same thing with the documentary. They contacted me. We found each other. You know, thank God for the internet.
Yeah.
I mean,
changed our life.
A lot of people hate it, but I actually have found, you know, I can make a living through it. I can do all kinds of cool things through the internet.
It's a great thing.
Yeah,
if you took it away now, the people would freak out. I mean, it's a part of our life.
It is, and I've been able to network with all these awesome female musicians and female drummers, and get in these forums and talk drums and, you know, vintage equipment and everything else that we do. And because of that, they'd be like, hey, I want to feature you in a film, you know?
That's fantastic.
Who knew?
When I think of like the top, I mean, I put you in the list. I mean,
thanks,
there's
man.
those guys like I took a master class from Cindy Blackman
about
10 years ago. Yeah, she was a great.
How was that?
Fabulous jazz player. She's of course completely consumed and loves Tony Williams, who is arguably
Tony
the greatest.
Williams is probably my number one. I mean, when I listen to that 20th anniversary CD he has, I can't. You can't even figure out what he's doing.
He is no doubt in the class by himself.
He is.
Carmine Appice said when he was with Vanilla Fudge, he said, I was cocky back in the 60s. So I went to hear about this young kid that was supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
And he said, I sat at this table and I said, okay, kid, show me what you got. He's thinking it. He said, and he started playing. Tony Williams started playing. He said, he's the only drummer that completely floored me in 20 seconds. He said, I had no idea what he was doing, where he was going, where he came from. He said, I was just like, my jaw hit the ground. But yeah, he's one of the greatest of all time, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I've read a lot of stuff on him, and he would just sit and practice nonstop.
Yeah.
You know, he was with Miles Davis for a long time, if our listeners don't know.
The stuff he did, the jazz, some of the jazz thing he did, approaches, like the ride cymbal, the metric modulation ride cymbal stuff he does.
Yeah.
That's like, man, that was way ahead of its time. You know, a lot of guys weren't even thinking that way back then. It was amazing. So.
Yeah. And when you listen to, I mean, my brain as a drummer, when I listen to stuff, is always counting.
Yeah.
You know, it's a blessing and a curse.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, because I cannot hear anything without going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You know, it's in my blood and my brain. But when you listen to Tony Williams, you don't know what time signature he's in. You don't know where he is or what he's doing or where he's going. Like you said, he's just that good.
He does, but it's the same with Vinnie Colaiuta. He's I took a lesson from Chad Wackerman years ago, and he said that when Vinnie was in Frank Zappa, he said they'd be doing these incredible jams like in 1916 and 21. It's all the way they subdivided, and they said Vinnie knew exactly where he was. Everybody else was like an eighth note away from where the reference one was. He said, and Frank would literally have to turn around and count everybody in on his count. But he said Vinny was just floating along, knew where he was. Yeah. Nobody else did, but he did.
I know.
And that's like Tony Williams.
It's like, where's the one, man?
Yeah, right.
Where's the one? We have no idea.
Yeah. But Tony was the same way, you know. So
that's wild.
But that's cool, man. That's cool. That's everybody does something different, and that's what's great. But I think about like you, and I think of like Hannah Welton, who's done, she's fantastic.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Have you ever heard of Emmanuel Caplett?
Yes. I've asked her to be on my show.
She's fabulous.
Yeah.
She's a really technician, but she's also a groove player.
Oh yeah,
like you. She's like you. She's a technician, but a groove player too.
I'm a huge groove fan more than chops. I'm like, my hands just do what they do, but groove is kind of my thing. I love.
Yeah, she's great. And there's a lot of them. You know, Cindy Blackman, of course, Sheila E. My gosh, there's a number. And what is it, Annika Niles or something? Yeah, she's amazing.
And let's not forget Viola Smith. She's 106 and still rocking the drums, man.
And man, think about it. When she was playing during that time when the drum set was just all male. And,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
She was great.
In fact, the book is all really about Viola Smith and her career because, I mean,
Fantastic.
she's still kicking, man. And she credits drumming with helping her sustain her life as long as she has.
I think there's some truth to that. You know, you're moving all four limbs. You know, it forces you to stay focused. You know,
One of the biggest compliments I got was from the lady who wrote the book. She said, you're our Viola Smith of today. And I
Oh,
was like,
man.
wow, what a compliment. You know, that's
That's a
some big
major
shoes
compliment.
to fill. I wish I could do some YouTube videos like she has because
Man.
those old videos, they still hold up.
They do. They really do.
They do.
And those grouse swung, man. They were great.
Yes, they
They
did.
really were.
Well, we're about to take a break here and hit some fabulous Thunderbirds, but you do want to stick around because in the 3 o'clock hour, I've got Alice DeBurr going to call in, and we're all going to talk drums
Can't
and
wait.
geek out because me and Jeff are huge fans of Alice's.
Absolutely.
She doesn't even know that yet.
She's gonna find out.
She's going to find out soon enough. You're locked on to LRS102.com. Ain't that peculiar? That is Fanny. You're locked on to Generation Nation, LRS102.com, The Walrus. And we are now joined by the one and the only drummer for Fanny, Alice DeBoer. Right? Did I say it right?
Well, here I am. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, in the AC, sitting out of the 103-degree heat. Not wanting to get hot today. Picture of the drums in the CD we're just talking about was set up in the booth at Apple.
So, by the way, sorry about the connection stuff, but we are joined by Alice. She's the drummer of Fanny, and I want you to kind of educate us a little bit about Fanny. You know, I think a lot of the old schoolers kind of know about Fanny, but y'all are like making this awesome comeback.
Well, it was Beat Club footage. I've been trying to get that footage legally 10 or 15 years to put up on the FannyRocks.com site. And all of a sudden, the Beat Club puts up the whole half-hour, they turn the cameras on and let them run, and they put that up on the stream, and I was getting contacts from all over the world. Places I had never sent videos, sent CDs to.
Yeah.
All Norway and Denmark and Sweden and Switzerland, Japan and Italy and Spain. I mean, it was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and I watch that footage. What year was that, by the way? What year was the footage released?
71.
71. Okay, when I go back and I watch that 71 video of you all kind of you were recording a record live there, right?
No,
No?
That was just a television show. That was the first time that we did the Beat Club was following Charity Ball. I think the release of Charity Ball. Then we went back after we had cut or were cutting Fanny Hill, which we recorded at Apple Studios in London.
Cool.
And I had cut my hair by then, and we were a lot more relaxed. That footage has not been released, although you can find YouTube, you can find at least one or two of the songs. When I've got short hair, I think Part of Time is one of them, but that's one of the ways I can tell it is by the length of my hair.
I'm not for sure what videos I've watched, but I definitely saw one where you guys were, or you ladies, I should say, were in a studio, and man, that footage, we were talking, me and Jeff earlier today, footage like that just holds up. It's crazy. It still looks just as good today as it probably did in the 70s, you know what I mean? And people are watching it, because it had a ton of hits on it.
Well, the cool thing was that the Beat Club was so far ahead of the rest of the world. They mic'd us like we were, as if we had been in the studio. Mm-hmm. So the sound quality was probably the best video recording of us live. It was the closest to us live. Although the sound that was not that good was a Paris television show we did in Paris, where the energy level is much more like we were live, but the sound was kind of thin.
Yeah, tell me about how did you join the band?
I left home when I was 17 years old with my clothes packed inside my drums and went to California, Sacramento. Went around to the music stores, looking for built bulletin boards with drummer needed on it. And I saw this female drummer needed, and it was June and Jean. So I called and left a message. Their little sister answered the phone. Sylvia never gave them a message. They went off on a Canadian tour, 5 weeks or 3 weeks or something like that. They went through 3 or 4 drummers on that tour. They got back. They called me. I auditioned, and we broke up one time. Addie and I quit and started the band Wild Honey. And then we decided to bury the hatchet and got back together with June and Jean. And Addie and June and Jean and I went to L.A., and it was Wild Honey that signed the recording contract with Laprise. And then when we were recording the first album, we wanted to change the name to a woman's name, and I think it was being Richard Perry's aunt, something. So we were passing names around in the studio, and he said Fanny, and we said, that's it. That's great. So
I think it's a great name.
Great name, yeah.
Best name ever for a chick band, Fanny, man.
Yeah. It worked back in that time,
Yeah.
I don't know that it would work in today's music, but it worked for us, and it was fun. And we got to England. We had no idea that it meant the exact opposite. They were quick to point that out.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, God.
So, Alice, how did you get started playing drums? Like, what was your main influence? Tell us a little bit about your background as a female drummer.
Well, I started in 2nd grade in school band in Mason City, Iowa. The choir director at my church of the junior choir was also the elementary band teacher. And normally you couldn't start in school band until 3rd grade, but they had a shortage of drummers. So he called my mom and asked her if Alice wanted to learn how to play drums. And she stuck her head out the window, and I stuck my head out the apple tree and said, yeah. So I started in school band, went all the way through high school. Started a women's band, an all-girl trio in my junior year, and we played almost every weekend when I was a senior. That band was called The Women, and we played the bars in East Dubuque and, senior sock hops and stuff like that. Cool. And then after I graduated high school, I lit out in California because I was not going to get what I wanted in Iowa.
Right. We have a mutual friend, actually, Susie Fairbanks Palmer. Do you know her? Susie
Fairbanks?
Yeah, I know her.
Is she one of the twins?
Yeah, she's from Iowa, and she knows you well. And she was like, I know Alice. And I was like, a Fanny? And she said, yeah. She goes, I know another female drummer. It's so interesting how we're all connected now through the internet. But, yeah, she's down in Tennessee.
We went to the same church.
Yeah, that's what she said. Y'all grew up across the street from each other or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Small world, isn't it?
Farm. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was in Iowa, right?
Yeah, Mason City, Iowa.
Yeah. And where are you at right now? Where are you calling us from?
Tucson, Arizona.
How is Tucson, Arizona?
Yeah, I love it.
Super hot out there.
It's hot now, but, I lived in L.A. for 20 years, and part of that was the Fanny time, and part of it I was working in the record industry. I worked at A&M Records, and I just really got tired of California, and I think LA is pretty toxic.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
I moved to Tucson, and you're going to have to pry me out of here with a crowbar. I'll put up with the heat because we've got, great winters. I will never have to shovel snow again.
Yeah.
Unless I do it on purpose.
Alice, Fanny is kind of pretty much like the first female band, to kind of make a name for itself. Were there any bands I guess my main question is, why did you all decide to go with the all-female route? Because that was what I call herstory, not history. It's herstory when the ladies do it. Yeah, but bands today, all these female bands out there, they always say they're influenced by Fanny. Even the Go-Go's said they were influenced by Fanny.
I worked the Go-Go's. I did their first in-store.
Cool.
I made them stay to sign every single autograph. I said, "You're not leaving." I said, "I'll go buy beer. You sit here," and the line was around the block.
Wow.
And I was working at A&M as a local marketing person. And they signed every autograph, and they knew who Fanny was, of course. So, and it was cool. But all female band, I think it's a comfort level. I don't remember, put it this way, I don't remember thinking, oh, the only band I want to play in is an all-female band.
Right.
I did play in a guys band when I first got to Sacramento because June and Jean never called me back, so I joined a guys band. But I like the energy that women have. I like the way that women look at music and hear music and play music. I don't know. It's just a thing that's inside that I can't really describe. I don't think that when we were trying to knock the doors down back in 69, 70, 71, 73, we didn't think, oh, we're out here blazing the trail for anybody. We were just playing music because we wanted to play together.
Right. Isn't it wild how you end up being like female pioneers of the rock and roll industry? Yeah, I mean, because literally...
Bertha was around. Bertha played a heavier rock than we did. Our music at the time was considered FM radio music. It wasn't AM music like the Go-Go's was pop music. We were considered a little bit heavier. Bertha was a little bit heavier than we were. But there was, ISIS was before us, and the Pleasure Seekers, Patty and Susie's the Quattro Band out of Detroit. There were other bands, but because there was no internet, you didn't know about them.
Right.
And we were just the first all-girl band to sign a contract with a major label to release full albums. That's the only first. We weren't the first all-girl band.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, though, because you all, kind of were the sheroes, the pioneers back then. And you're still around, which I love.
Well, the thing that I've been trying to do for the last 15 to 20 years is keep the name of Fanny alive long enough for there to be some level of recognition for the trails that we did blaze, because I do believe that what we did mattered. So I've sunk a lot of my own money into making sure that all the albums got released on CD, working the website with Byron, who is, my admin and is a great. I say, Byron, can we do this? And he says, yeah, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. So I don't have to know the ins and outs of the website.
Right.
We work real well together. But
well,
I just wanted to. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I've got a lot of your CDs here in front of me, and we're going to be playing some Fanny from now on some LRS, and we're happy to have them. So as far as drumming wise, you've told us a little bit about your history. Did you have any influences? Because there weren't that many females playing drums back in those days.
My influences were all male. I remember when the Beatles came out. I didn't particularly like them. I liked the Beach Boys, and then a couple albums came out later, and I was like, "Oh man, these are really good." Ringo Starr, Charlie Watts, Bernard Purdie,
cool,
B.J. Wilson. Those four, Mick Fleetwood later, I really appreciated his drumming, but it was basically Ringo, Charlie Watts, B.J. Wilson, and Bernard Purdie. Bernard Purdie, I mean, he can do this. You can't even find the one.
I know. We were just talking about that earlier on the show, me and Jeff, about how, like with Tony Williams, you can't even find the one ever. Yeah. Yes, all of those people. Bernard Purdie is definitely one of my top 5 influences of all time. I love his little shoots, and I just love to watch his videos because he's so happy, and he'll be drumming and then be like, oh yeah, ooh, he just
he makes it look so damn easy.
I know.
It's like, I can't follow. How did you get there?
Yeah.
And and he makes it look like he's taking a walk in the park.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a shuffle even named after him. I mean, what drummer doesn't want their own shuffle, a beat named after them? You know, that's a pretty cool honor to have.
Well, first of all, let me just say it's an honor to talk to you, Alice. I was a big fan of Fanny. I used to watch you guys in high school, and when the Go-Go's came out, and the Bangles and all them, I'm like, hey man, don't forget about Fanny. They're the ones that blazed the trail for these bands. And man, I'm serious, and I mean, you guys rocked. I mean, it wasn't like, oh yeah, they're okay for girls. Oh no. Y'all rocked. I mean,
yeah, they're like kicking ass and taking names,
kicking ass, man. Your time and your feel, your backbeat strong as anybody out there, man. I mean, it was great. It's still great. It still holds up. And I just want to tell you, I saw you guys. I don't know if it was Don Kirshner's rock concert. I forget what it was. I saw you, like I said, I think it was a senior in high school on TV, and I'm like, man, these guys are great. So yeah, there's a lot of people that know who you are, and you don't. You know, I think it's great that you're keeping it alive, because that's a part of rock history, and you all definitely did something very special that most people never ever get to do. So never put it on the back burner. Always let people know, hey, we did this and I'm proud of it, and you should be, because it's something that most people will never ever do, and you and your bandmates actually got to do it, and it's documented.
It was there was a period of time after I left the band, and I went to work in the record industry, and I would hear the promo guys at the record distributor where I worked talking, and they talked about Fanny like we were a joke, a gimmick, and it pissed me off to no end, but it also made me very quiet about the fact that I had been in Fanny. And it wasn't until Nick at Night got some of the Beat Club footage, and this was in, it would have had to be after 74, because I was doing an inventory at Tower Records on Sunset Strip. And the buyer came in and said, hey, Alice, I saw you on TV last night. I said, what? What are you talking about? Yeah. And he told me it was Nick at Night, and it was like, okay.
Wow.
Who doesn't I mean, we all remember Nick at Night.
Oh, yeah. It's just, it's something to be proud of. I mean, I've got some friends that, had some moderate success, and I tell them, I'm like, don't ever discount that. Don't ever, don't ever act like, oh, well, it was a time. Sure, it was a time in your life, but it was a special time, and it definitely not only was a special time for you, but, and I'm sincere when I mean this, it was influential to other people, to a lot of gals out there. I mean, one of them sitting right across from me right here, Jen Yates, and a lot of other, thousands of other women that are rocking out today and inspiring other kids to do the same thing because of what you all did. So, and I'm serious. I'm sincere when I mean that, and when I say it, because it's true.
Well, Jeff, I'm very proud of what we did, what we accomplished.
You should be.
You absolutely should be.
Yeah, the fact that I can pull out, 4 CDs, and they were recorded almost 50 years ago now. We're close to 1970s when Fanny came out, but it's like, yeah, we did this, and I feel so blessed to have ridden that train and been on that path. Recording at Apple and meeting the Beatles and Jagger, and the moments that I had in my life back then, I will always cherish.
You can't take that away from you. And there are people that I know that would kill. They would kill to have half of that, of what you've had.
Yeah.
And when you tell them, they just look on their faces like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I'm like, you've done it. You've done that. So it's amazing.
Yeah. And the other thing is that there is no feeling in the world that I have experienced, like getting on stage in front of 17,000 people, knowing that you know what you're doing, and then deliver.
You are absolutely right. I've had, and I'm sure you've had people say, why do you musicians spend thousands of dollars on gear and travel, 100 miles to make, X amount of dollars? And I'm like, have you ever done it? They go, no. So, well, until you do, you don't have any idea. And Keith Richards said in his autobiography, he said, when you hit that mark on stage or in the studio, when you hit that mark and you're on the same page, he said it's like flying without wings. And he's right. He's absolutely right. And only those of us who've done it really know what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like magic.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan, and I'm just super pumped. I'm just letting y'all talk because, I mean, it's like drummer haven here. You know,
she's on another level.
Yeah.
I'll never reach that. Most
Yeah.
guys I know will never reach the level that she's at. So, but it's fantastic.
Now you two, just, you know, being humble and everything's very cool, but you've got your own stuff to talk about. You know, I wanted to come out to LA and see you in that play. I wanted to
In
do that
Girlfriend?
so
Yeah.
bad.
Man, I wanted you to. I tell you what, that was probably one of the most special career highlights in my life. I mean, I'm sitting there on stage, and not only do I have an awesome band who, I mean, Julie Wolfe, obviously, she toured with the Indigo Girls and Ani DeFranco and was producing Carly Simon. You know, it's like, and then my bass player Vivi Rama, who I'm hoping to get on the show soon. She tours with Kesha and Tegan and Sarah, Kate Bush, Will I Am. I mean, and then my lead guitar player Janet Robin was the only female to study under Randy Rhoads. And she tours with, had toured with Dave Stewart and Lindsey Buckingham. I mean, it was an all-star cast. And then I'm sitting there, and here I am, Miss Kentucky country girl from a town of like 2,600 people, first time in L.A. I had, totally outside of my box. I'm there by myself, parking in Kirk Douglas's personal parking spot.
But honey, you had that hillbilly swagger carrying.
I did have some hillbilly swagger,
if
man.
you couldn't handle it,
Right.
you wouldn't have been there if you couldn't handle it. You killed it, too. So.
Yeah, man. I just remember, like, I was sitting behind a plexiglass during that run, and we're playing all Matthew Sweet. Matthew Sweet sending me roses. I was just like, it was crazy. But I remember looking out in the audience, and they're setting Courtney Love, and I was like, I think that's Courtney Love. Surely not. Yeah. And then it was. And then I was like, that's weird. I've never been to one of her shows, but Courtney Love's in my audience. You know what I mean? And then I met some of the Bangles. I met Bruce Lange. I mean, it was just, that was a magic moment.
It is. So that's what you live for. I mean, those are the moments that we live for.
Yeah.
Alice, you've had a number of those, obviously. But,
Alice,
I mean, we've only had a few like that, but she's had a million of them.
I love the story that you packed your clothes and your drums and moved to L.A. I love that.
That's a gutsy move.
My bass drum was very convenient for packing a number of things.
I bet.
I packed a bunch of cases of Thai food tea from England.
Cool.
In my bass drum, so it didn't have to go through
customs. Yeah.
What kind of drums are you playing, or what kind of drums did you play back then, or what?
Camco.
Camco.
I saw a video the other day of you, and I was wondering if they were Camco or Heyman, but yeah, they're Camco. Yeah, the round lugs.
They're Camco, Camco natural wood. Yeah.
Wow, and are you still playing those today?
I have there in storage. I've got an electric kit in the living room that I very rarely sit down on. I hardly ever play anymore.
Yeah. We were talking
I'm
about
always playing on my legs.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Yeah. And it's just kind of in your blood. It's hard to, give up, isn't it? It's so physical, though. Me and Jeff were talking about earlier having, I've got a little bit of nerve damage going on down to my left hand, and my fingers go down sometime. And it's I had an injury back in October, and it's just been so hard to, get past. And,
you're gonna have to take your hand to that drumstick.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah. Yeah.
That's why, I was very lucky to study with some guys that emphasized proper technique. And they said for that reason, you don't want to, if you're using bad technique and you're slamming and you're squeezing sticks and you're not hitting correctly, you're going to hurt yourself. And not that you do, you don't. That yours is something completely different. But I mean, that's one thing good about having good technique is that it can allow you to hopefully play as you get older without injury.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alice,
Go
ahead.
I always played overhand with my left hand because I broke my arm playing football in 9th grade. And when I played the proper technique method, the bones would rub together and it hurt. So I played overhand with the left hand. I also played really hard. Hit the drums lightly. I have a hard time.
You look at the videos, Mel. You were rocking, girl. You were rocking. Yeah,
we were just talking about how hard you hit earlier.
You were rocking. You were rocking.
Which we love a girl who can just beat the hell out of them things, right? By the way, I love your CD cover for Mother's Pink. It's a baby doll head with pink lips and two gold stars, and then I opened it up to take the CD out. And who is that on the bed?
Who do you think?
You?
Yeah, that's me. I'm covered with, those are English pound notes. That's one of the English tours, probably the last tour in '73.
Yeah.
And it's, I decided to put that picture in out of my archive because I would love that picture. I think it's just...
I love this picture, too. I wish our listeners could see this picture. It's her, like, legs spread open on a bed in a hotel room, totally naked, yeah, basically. And what do you have on you? Is it money covering you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so she's got money laid
pounds.
everywhere. Right. And then the crotch is right where the CD hole is. It's
Awesome.
amazing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, all of the CDs you sent in are really cool. And I love the look of Fanny. Y'all were all like, I would have been drooling over y'all when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, y'all are all little hotties.
It was a good-looking
Thank
band.
you.
It was a good-looking,
Good-looking band,
But
yeah.
once again, let me say, they rocked. I mean,
Hell, yeah.
it wasn't a gimmick. They were a legit, really kick-ass rock band, and that's why they're still getting what they're getting today. Because people that know something can listen and go, oh, whoa, wait a minute, listen to this. Wow, this
I have
was
to
something
say,
special.
I agree with you, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just telling it like
And
it
I
is.
agree with him, too. And
Yeah.
that's why I wanted you on the show. I was like, I want some Fanny up on here, and I'm always telling my students about you all. And, anytime I can spread the word about Fanny, I will, because I'm a huge fan.
You know, Jen, you teach kids, and when I was in high school, I taught at the local music store, and the kids got so mad at me because I made them learn how to count
Yeah.
and read music first
Yeah.
before I teach them a drum beat.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And you were like, oh, no, you got to know what you're doing before
Exactly.
you start getting into a boom chick.
Yeah, I hear you. I always teach my kids to count and read, and try to show them technique. But I do, I try to keep it fun though too, and I let them kind of develop their own kind of little thing. I try to at least, because every drummer has to kind of do their own thing, or.
It's a great thing, though, by teaching them. And I've had people also say, well, man, why do I need to count? And I say, well, you should do basic fundamental stuff. And I said, well, give me examples. So, okay, say, for example, you're in a studio.
Yeah.
And the producer says, okay, listen, kid, I want you to hit, when you come out of that chorus, I want you to crash cymbal on the and of 4. Well, if you don't know how to count, you don't know how to count eighth notes, then you're like, huh? What?
Where is
and,
that?
and then you're going to miss it. And he's like, hey, man, on the end of 4. And you're like, that's just a very like a short example of why you need it. It's a basic one, but that's a good reason to understand counting and where you're at and understanding song structure and form and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to me, the biggest thrill for me was I got to create the drum part for those songs. Nobody had, especially on our original songs, nobody had ever played that song before. And the most fun for me as a drummer is creating the drum part that fits with the song.
Agreed. The original creative
That's
aspect
fantastic.
of it. I always tell my students too, I have 6-year-olds who could play a cover song.
Yeah.
But it takes a true artist to really write their own stuff, create their own stuff.
Yeah.
It's a very hard world though financially, obviously. Cover music pays the bills.
Well,
kind of thing.
You're right. I've gotten in arguments about this with other people, and I'm like, I get it because I used to be in a band that did all originals, but there is a challenge to playing covers and playing them correctly. It forces you maybe to learn a style you've never learned, especially if you do what we do, which is a gamut of music from rap to rock from the 30s to the 90s, and you have to dive in and learn a style that you've never maybe even heard of, and you have to learn how to approach that.
Right.
So there is the challenge there. But that all helps. It's like even the Beatles were a cover band, but it all helps in the creation of like you said, Alice, with your creative drum parts, and when you are playing covers, that's the best way to learn, and then it just helps you to grow as a musician. Yeah. All of it is a tool, is a helping tool as to help you create music as a musician.
Yeah,
Correct.
I agree with you. Yeah, and I think the key is just keep playing.
Keep playing.
You can't get better unless you keep playing.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna take a short little break here. We are locked on. You are locked on. Not we are. Well, we're sitting right here in the studio. But we are joined by Alice DeBurr of Fanny, awesome female drummer. So honored to have her, as well as Jeff Jarbo from the Wolf Brothers. And you're listening to LRS102.com, The Walrus. I am Jen Yates. We're going to give you some sweet ballroom blitz. You got to love that kind of train beat, kind of groove he's got going on there.
What's cool about this groove is the guy's time is really good throughout the whole track, which is easy to rush that kind of a feel right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it sure is. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Jeff and Alice on Louisville's Rock Stream.
It's number one on your local radio to the whole
I'm Jen Yates. You're locked on to Generation Nation here on LRS102.com, The Walrus. We are broadcasting live from the Launch Louisville Studios. That's down on East Broadway. And I am joined by Jeff Jarbo and Alice DeBurr of Fanny. Are you there with us?
We are.
Yeah.
I am.
I'm here.
Cool. Man, tell us a little bit about that track, Solid Gold. You said it's probably never even hit the airwaves yet.
I don't know if anybody ever played that live. I know that Keith Moon covered it on one of his solo albums.
Wow.
Or his only solo album.
Wow.
That's
And
cool.
Nikki wrote that song, and she wanted the vocals to sound like a teenage punk kid. And I was the only one that could sound like a teenage punk kid because I can't sing. I drank about a half a bottle of Southern Comfort, kicked them out of the studio, went in and sang the song. Well, I couldn't hit those high notes, And the reviews that we got for that song were full. Like, we could do without Alice if you're tiptoeing the lines of sharp and flat.
Sometimes though, as a musician, you just want to do something cool and interesting, And by the way, you got a great story out of it.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. So, Alice, you've done some of the coolest things ever. For Keith Moon to cover your stuff, what in the world? I had no idea some of the stories you had.
He came, Keith Moon loved us. We were playing in Chicago at the Brown Shoe, Old Town. And he came, and there were two bands set up on stage, so there were two drum sets. He was drunk off his ass, and he got on to me on a kit and played a couple songs with us, and he was just, Keith Moon all over the place.
Yeah.
But because he was so drunk, he was not really keeping the beat. So it's like, okay, Keith, thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Just to have somebody like that cover your songs, and then plus to record, to say you actually recorded in Apple. Again, I know people that would just kill to even go there to see the place, much less record there.
And she met the Beatles.
Wow.
To record with Jeff Emmerich.
Wow, yeah.
Oh my God.
That's, it's...
He was a master instrument.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Richard Perry produced Fanny Hill, but Jeff Emmerich was the engineer, and we were downstairs in Apple in the studio, and we couldn't get it. We took 2 days to get a drum sound. Finally, he pulls out this mic that looked like a thing, and it was the Ringo mic that nobody ever got to use. He said, if you ever tell anybody, you're in trouble. Right? Well, now he's dead, so I guess I can tell the story. But he hung that mic over, and sure enough, we got the drum sound.
Wow.
On one of the guitar parts, Richard kept turning her amp down. June says to Keith, to Jeff, hey Jeff, how did George Harrison get the sound on blah 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 song, right? How high did he have his amp? Jeff Emmerich said he had it up on 11.
You go to 11.
Yeah, the Spinal Tap. Yeah. By the way, I pulled up the Fanny Hill record, and I was showing Jeff the inside with the drums. Is that the mic?
No, you cannot see the mic.
Okay.
The mic was just at. I'm opening up my CD right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking how you have those drums taped up. I'm like, what is going on with that? Is that how they dampened them back then?
Yeah, back then, sure did.
Wow.
The Love Fanny sticker was not on the drums.
Right.
That was just something that was put on. It was a sticker that was around that time. But to dampen the drums a little bit so they didn't gave me a flatter sound.
Right. Yeah.
But the mic itself was a little black cylinder, round cylinder, and it was held to the edges of a larger circle with these little wires so that it kind of floated.
Like a shock mount. A shock mount, yeah.
Yeah. And that was a special Ringo mic.
Gosh. Alice, you need, I don't know if you considered writing a book, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to email the people at Drum Magazine, because, you got the two big publications. You got Modern Drummer and you got Drum. And I'm going to email them and really suggest that they interview you and put a story. You should have an interview in Drum Magazine. I agree. Absolutely.
We need to get you.
You got too many cool stories. People need to know about this.
I agree, man.
Well, I just did an interview for Backtour Magazine. I think it's coming out in September in France.
Yeah.
And I spent last July in France with my friend Angie Tapp, who I think is listening today in Auton. But she and Jane, a friend of hers, translated my English answers into fluent French so that Christophe Rossi didn't miss the point of what I was answering when I answered his questions. It's kind of cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I could just sit. I wish we had a whole nother hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I could just sit and talk to you all day.
Not just girls.
Why don't you, Jim?
Yeah.
Why don't you invite Jeffrey and me back?
I would love to have you all back. I will call you anytime I need something. I'm going to call you all up and be like, hi, let's talk.
It's an honor. It really, I'm not serious. I'm very serious when I say it's an honor for me to talk to you and be on the air with you. I mean that. I mean, like I said, I came up watching you guys. But seriously, the people, any drummer out there should know these stories and hear your life experiences, because it is very, very interesting and informative.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that you've met the Beatles, you recorded at Apple Studios, Keith Moon covered your stuff. I mean, is there anything you've left out that's, would blow our minds any more than you already have?
I don't know if I can tell you about Smoking Hash with Mick Jagger.
Please do. Smoking Hash with Mick Jagger sounds right up my alley.
We were recording Fanny Hill, and I don't remember if we had done a show that night or not, but Bobby Keys had played some horns on one of the albums.
Hey, can I tell you something? I got to play with Bobby Keys right before he passed in Nashville as a backing percussionist. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, he was. But go ahead.
He had a flat, or maybe it was a hotel. Maybe it was a flat. I don't know. Anyway, he and June and Nick and I went back to his flat. And because it's so hard to get pot in England, it was a lot easier to get hash. And they would put hash in the cigarette with the tobacco and smoke that way. So we sat around all night long smoking hash, talking, and just having a blast. It was very cool. I think I can remember telling Mick that I liked my lips better than his.
That's amazing. They are still on tour because Marvin Maxwell, another great drummer around town here, was telling me he had tickets to see him in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago.
I was talking to a guy who recently saw them a few nights ago, actually. I think Chicago, wherever. But, I think rock and roll and the music that came from the 60s up to, I think it's changed the perception of age in our country and really around the world. I mean, man, when I was a kid, 70 was old.
Yeah.
Not now. I mean, these guys are in their 70s, almost 80, and they're still rocking. Yeah. I think the perception, and that's happened from rock and roll and from popular music like that, it's changed people's perception of what age is.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Yeah, it's fascinating to me, too. I always say, after everybody's gone on Earth, there's still going to be, Keith Richards. Keith Richards, maybe Willie Nelson, and some cockroaches. They're all going to still be around.
No doubt.
Yeah, because, I mean...
As long as there are enough for a full band, everything will be fine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Man, what an honor, Alice. I was also going to drop the Women Drummers book because that's really how I got hip to you. And then all these people were dropping your name from different, not only musicians but also just random people I knew on a daily, which was kind of crazy. The Women Drummers book really kind of turned me on to you, and then all of a sudden, I found you on Facebook. You gotta love Facebook.
Oh yeah.
And added you, and I've just kind of been following you for a while now. And I'm like, oh, cool, let's get her on the show because she's a badass drummer, And I definitely want to feature women drummers.
No question.
I see your posts. I'm looking through your songs when you post a song on. I
Love that.
Your love and affection for Bev.
Yeah.
That broke my heart.
I still have like a lot of her music that I've got that it's just been so hard to produce it, because usually she'd be sitting there telling me what she wanted, and I'm like, there's nobody sitting there to tell me what to do anymore, you know what I mean? But we just had a spiritual spark.
Yeah, but you know what she wanted. You know what she wanted it to sound like.
Yeah.
You know that in your being, so just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I'm working on it. And I was honored to get to play with her the last 6 years of her life. Now, we didn't know it was going to be the last 6 years of her life, but everything that came out of her mouth was genius. That's why I wanted to put a mic on her at all times. I just wanted to record her all the time. And looking back now, I'm glad I did. She pops up on my memories, almost every day. Anytime I'm down, I'll see a sign from her. You know what I mean? She's always spiritually around me. I still feel her. I see her. Yeah. She sure is. Just the other day, just a random little, thing about this, but I was like, oh, I wish I had a gray wristband to wear today. And, and I was like, oh, it seemed, I don't know. I just said that to myself, and then I walk out to the garage, and I look down, there's a gray wristband just laying in the middle of the floor, and I pick it up, and it was one of Bev's cancer wristbands. And I was like, how weird is that?
That's weird.
And I was like, thanks, Bev.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I know you're there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I will get that stuff out because, that Hillbilly Swagger project, coolest name ever, 2 chicks from the country who ended up going to L.A. and doing really well in music, and we were just like soul sisters from the get-go. Yeah. Well, Alice, it has been such an honor to have you on the show today. I really appreciate you calling in. We'll definitely get you back on, and for those listeners that don't know, man, Fanny, one of the earliest chick rock bands of all time.
Killer band. She was, and you are a fantastic drummer, and man, played with authority and confidence, and definitely an inspiration to not just other women, but other drummers. So great job, Alice. It's an honor to talk to you, and I hope one day we can meet.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
For the opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm going to call you back sometime soon. You just wait. You're going to be like my go-to.
She needs to be on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. From smoking hash with Mick Jagger to Keith Moon covered her song. She hung out.
Recording at Apple with Ringo's mic. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I would have you on all day, every day to talk about stuff. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate that.
All right, sweetheart.
All right, you take care. All right, you too.
Have a great summer.
Yeah. Jeff, how about that?
Fantastic.
Can you believe that?
No, she's she's done things that most people dream about that will never do. And she was in a magical time with when the Beatles and the Stones, and they were touring, they were still making music, and it was a magical time, that late 60s, early 70s era. Yeah. And man, they were trailblazers, no doubt about it. And what's cool is that it still holds up.
Yeah.
The music isn't dated. You don't go, well, it's okay. No, you used to go, hey, wow, listen to it. It still holds up.
Right. When we first started with her interview, I was telling her, if you go to YouTube and you watch those like early 70s recordings of them in the studio, you can see how amazing they were.
Yeah.
And it's, like you said, still holds up. It's fascinating to watch.
As good as it is here, if you would have been there seeing it, it's even that's much better when you're actually seeing it live. It's
I know.
Yeah.
And when Keith Moon and Mick Jaggers are like loving you, and Apple, overseas want to record you,
it's a fantasy.
You pretty much made it. Yeah. And to have the balls, or excuse my language, Mom, but to have the balls to put your stuff in your bass drum and just go, you know what, I'm moving to LA.
that's someone there that was driven by passion and wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yep.
And she was like, nothing's going to stop me.
Right.
And it didn't. And she made her mark. And here it is, 2019, almost 50 years later.
Yeah.
And we're talking about her and her band and what they accomplished. And that's pretty amazing. It really is. So.
Yeah, and wow. And it's also been an honor to have you in, Jeff, because I'm a big fan of yours.
Well, it's been an honor for me to be on here, Jen. I love you as a player and as a person. And if anyone is listening, it's a Wolf Brother fan, thank you guys and the gals, for everyone, for all of your support for all these years. We love it. We love doing what we do and feel blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff, for coming in, and being a big fan of LRS. You told us about all kinds of cool stuff back in the day. Yeah. Because LRS has been around since, 64?
Yeah.
That's a long time. And it blows my mind to think back then. I mean, we were the station, like, breaking Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin when they came out, the Stones when they came out.
Yeah.
You know, the Beatles were coming out right around that time, too. The Beatles literally...
They were just starting, and in all the albums, the Sgt. Pepper stuff. I mean, they all were breaking it then.
It's amazing. So thank you so much for coming in the studio. It's been such an honor to have you on the show.
It's been an honor for me. Thank you, Jim.
We will have you back for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the show today. You've been listening to Generation Nation. This is LRS102.com, The Walrus.